We're talking about the existence of God and the overwhelming evidence for that. And the point of this series is that the evidence has just been piling up in the last 50 years. Today we're talking about the fine-tuning of the universe itself. Let's just take two of these four elements or constants here and the ratio that they have to have together here. If you have gravity and the electromagnetic force, they have to be so finely tuned together that it will require one chance in 10 to the 40th power. If you get outside of that 1 times 10 to the 40th power, no life at all. Even mathematicians would say that's beyond the realm of possibility. My imagination is not nearly that big. And we're just scratching the surface here when it comes to the fine-tuning of the universe for life itself. Hey, welcome to Church for Skeptics. We're talking about the existence of God and the overwhelming evidence for that. And the point of this series is that the evidence has just been piling up in the last 50 years. You could call it the 100 years. So we're talking about four things. We're talking about the universe had a beginning. We call it the Big Bang. And science has affirmed that, what, of course, Scripture had been saying for many, many years. The second thing that we're talking about is the fine-tuning of the universe itself. The universe can't exist unless everything is so perfectly lined up that it's just no way it has to be by chance. That you only have chance and design, and necessity doesn't really come into it. So it has to be either design or chance that we're here. And I think intuitively most people know that obviously that we're here for a reason. That's called the teleological argument, but it's also called the intelligent design argument, that we're here because we are designed to be here. We're here on purpose. But we also have a purpose, and that's what makes life worth living, is to have a purpose. We can make it up as we go along, but it's just, if we do that, then it's not really, we're grading our own test. A lot of things fall together here. Today we're talking about the fine-tuning of the universe itself. There are four physical constants that work together to make us alive. Now, there are a lot more than four constants, and they all have to work. But for the four basics, you have gravity, and we've talked about that. We have the weak force and the strong nuclear force, they're called, has to do with the amount of force to keep atoms together. And then the electromagnetic, which allows them to maneuver and basically make elements. You look at the periodic chart and you see all these elements. To live, we need about 24 elements that we could not live unless we had those. Well, what are those elephants? Where do those elements come from? Basically, they come from stars. And those stars have to be some large and some small. And the reason that we have all those stars is because those four constants work together. So we're going to talk about that just a bit here, and then I'll give you an illustration to make it that hopefully more understandable for you. Everybody understands gravity. We don't need, that's the one thing of these four elements that we don't know, that we do know mostly about, because we live with it all the time. We live with them all, but we don't notice them all. The strong nuclear force, it's what keeps atoms together. And think about it, that's what makes matter matter. That's what makes matter consist. Interestingly enough, Colossians chapter 1:17 says that Jesus Christ holds all things together. So Jesus Christ himself is the strong nuclear force in that sense. If the strong nuclear force were just a little bit less, there would be no matter. The matter would not consist, as the scripture says. It would not hold together. Nothing would exist except hydrogen. And then if that same strong nuclear force were just a little bit stronger, again, nothing would exist, no matter would exist, because there would be no life, there would be no hydrogen at all. So if it's too little, it's all hydrogen. If it's too much, it's no hydrogen at all. And you have to have the hydrogen as well as the other elements, of course. So that's the second thing. The third one is the electromagnetic force, which keeps the electrons of the elements in orbit around their nuclei. In other words, it's what makes them elements. And that's why we have a periodic chart, and those numbers tell you something about how many protons and how many neutrons and how many electrons there are. The electromagnetic force keeps those things being what they are. And here's the thing, those three forces, separately they're remarkable, but they have to work completely together for there to be life on any planet at all. Let me give you a quick example of that. Every living thing requires DNA, of course, and the DNA requires hemoglobin, which delivers the oxygen to make the living thing alive. Well, where does the oxygen come from? It needs iron. Well, where does the iron come from? Iron comes from really big stars. So my point is, you see how this all works together. I'm going to give you an illustration here that I think might blow your mind. It's kind of surely did me. Iron is produced in large stars. Now, we don't just have to have large stars. We have to have small ones too. Our sun is a fairly small star, but it's just perfectly situated, the right distance and the right mass, and it's really we're the only planet that can sustain life because it's exactly in the right habitable zone, they call it. I'm gonna give you an illustration here. Let's just take two of these four elements or constants here, and the ratio that they have to have together here. If you have gravity and the electromagnetic force, they have to be so finely tuned together. They both have, obviously, mathematical formulas. They have to be so finely tuned together that it will require one chance in 10 to the 40th power. In other words, it has to be that closely related. If you get outside of that 1 times 10 to the 40th power, no life at all. Now, what does that mean? How does that really relate? Well, here's the chance. And by the way, if you want to take these odds to Las Vegas, take them. Not me. I don't have enough faith to do that. Let's suppose then, and this is a good illustration from scientists themselves, by the way. Let's suppose we cover the United States and Alaska with dimes, okay? And then we're going to add Canada to that. So now you've got the U.S. and Alaska and Canada covered with dimes. Now add Mexico and half of Central America, and you have all that great geographical land covered in dimes. Well, how many dimes? Well, we're going to repeat that until the dimes are higher than Mount McKinley, which is 20,000 feet. So you've got dimes covering the U.S., Alaska, Canada, Mexico, and half of Central America, 20,000 feet thick with dimes. And you think, okay, and you're going to make me pick one dime. No, we're not there yet. We have to do that 12 more times, which means that we're now talking about 2,000 or 240,000 feet in dimes that cover America, the United States, Canada, Alaska, Mexico, and half of Central America. But we're not done yet. Now we have to do that. We're talking about 1 times 10 to the 40th power here. You have to do it 5,000 more times. And you say, that's out of sight. We can't even imagine that. No, we can't really imagine that. But you have to do that 1 billion more times to get 1 times 10 to the 40th power. Now, once you've done that 1 billion times and you've got all those dimes, one of those dimes is red. And you're going to blindfold yourself and walk among those dimes and pick the right one the very first time, and that's what it would take to make the universe work and sustain life by chance. Even mathematicians would say that's beyond the realm of possibility. I guess theoretically you could do it, but there's not enough time for that to happen. So you still want to stick with chance? My imagination is not nearly that big, and we're just scratching the surface here when it comes to the fine-tuning of the universe for life itself. That's two constants. That's gravity and the electromagnetic field. Those two things alone have to be so finely tuned for us to have life, so we can have stars, so we can have iron, so we can have hemoglobin, so we can have DNA, and so life will sustain itself. That's pretty remarkable. I don't see how anybody could rationally believe that that happened randomly. I do not. I hope this is helpful to you. Maybe you've never really understood this, and there are a lot of videos out there about the fine-tuning of the universe, a lot of books out there that just show how remarkably impossible it is for us to be here by chance alone. Thanks for watching.